David Shuckman, BBC News in Glasgow.
Well, let's talk about some of this in the presence of Baroness Scotland. She's the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, representing 54 countries, 2.5 billion people around the world. So you have a significant role to play here. No gavel. We've just missed the deadline. How long do you think it'll go?
Well, I think it's going to go for a while because we really have to close the gap. You know that there is a gap between where we think the conference is, which is at 2.3 degrees, and where we need to be, which is at 1.5. And that gap is critically important to those vulnerable countries who know already at 1.1 that millions of them are losing their houses, their homes, their livelihoods, and their families. And so we've got to close that gap, but we've also got to close the gap on the money. Since 2009, we've been promising that $100 billion, and we're still nowhere near. And we know that the real figure we need is trillions. So I'm not surprised that people are digging in deep. I said yesterday we needed to dig in deep, we needed to come together, and we needed to solve that problem, because it's not going away, and people's lives and their livelihoods depend on it right now.
I've just spoken in the last few minutes to the chief negotiator of the Marshall Islands. An interview we'll play later on BBC World, but she was saying that finally today, in the last few hours, John Kerry, Frans Timmermans of the EU, the big countries, they're finally talking the language of the text that was put together in July. Do you feel that we are slightly nearing an end with this, that they are approaching the right kind of language for the people you represent?
Well, I think we're getting there, because for the first time, Tristan, we are in agreement that 1.5 is the aspirational target. That's what we need to get to. We are in agreement. Countries, local authorities, businesses, all of us are saying not when and if, but how. How? So that quantum shift, I think, means that finally people might be hearing us. But it's not just about hearing, it's about doing and putting into action the promises that we've made, because the other thing we have to do is build trust. So many people have said, we've been waiting for this, we've been hoping for it, but it's like waiting for Godot. It hasn't come. It has to come now.
What concerns people is that there's fine language in there, and of course we've discussed over the last 24 hours how every word is fought over. And what the representative from the Marshall Islands said to me was that when it comes to loss and damage, and we're not allowed to talk about compensation, it has to be loss and damage, they said to the Marshall Islands today, well, let's have a workshop, which was derided. Because a workshop suggests that we park it somewhere, we talk the good game, but the money never materialises. So how are you going to reassure your members that the language that is in this text is robust enough to ensure that the money flows?
But I think it's not just the languages. What are we going to do? You'll know that in the Commonwealth we've created the Climate Finance Access Hub, which is putting advisors in those countries in order to make the applications. Right now, only 2% of the money coming from the Green Fund is going to small island states, and only 2% is going to oceans. Now, if you look at the small states, 96% of them are oceans, and only 4% is land. So people are saying it's not just about the words. What are the mechanisms that we're going to use? I would like to have in the Secretariat enough money to put an advisor into every country who's asked me, because I know it works. We've got, with just £1.5 million, we've already delivered $44 million into the hands.
Is that on the table? Could that happen, a Secretariat to do this?
Yeah, no, we are saying give us the money, because we've got 762 million projects, dollars projects in the pipeline. So we can ramp this up. We've got innovators. We can do this, we just can't do it on our own. All of us have to do this together, and we have got some of the mechanisms to do it. We just need to find the will and the commitment and the understanding that none of us can do this on our own. All the things we're doing helps, but everybody needs to do more. We've just launched something. We'd launched the Blue Charter in 2018. Now we've got the Call for Living Lands to implement the 3 Rio Conventions. And that's because we've been talking about implementation, but we haven't been doing it. So we in the Commonwealth are coming up with toolkits which basically say this is how we're going to deliver, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to get the language, but even once we've got the language, it's what are we going to do? How do we implement this? And I believe we can do it, and we have to do it. We will do it if we close the gap on aspiration and we close the gap on the money, and then make sure that the people who desperately need that money for adaptation and mitigation get it. And it has to be, half of it has to go to adaptation. Otherwise, we aren't going to have a future that any of us are going to like.
Baroness Scotland, good of you to come and talk to us. We'll let you go back to the negotiations because I know they'll all be calling you. 54 countries have a lot to say about what is going on at the moment. It's about practicalities, as Baroness Scotland